Come and take a class at the Alteration.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Alter Academy. Today's guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to give one anyway. Today we have world's qualified competitor, #1 on the Lorcana charts, creator of the current best Ruby Sapphire deck. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce DKP. DKP, how are you today?
Yo, what's up, guys? Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Always watching your videos, and yeah, finally I can also join the Alta Academy.
Yeah, very excited to have you and go over and get some of the insights you have for altering this deck, because I've played this deck a lot in tournaments, and it is one of the hardest decks to play, and so if I can get the alter down, it's going to definitely improve my game for these upcoming set champs.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so let's get into it. I notice from your current list here, you're up to 4 Tamatoa Happy as a Clam. Can you walk me through that decision making and how we got there by just playing only 4 Popsicles?
Yeah. So, a big misconception about the Tamato and Popsicle thing is that you need to have more items to get back. But the point about Tamatoa mainly is to gain your plus, right? And in this terms, if you have 2 Popsicles, or let's say if you had the Fortisphere before, it was a +2. You play a body, get 2 items back that actually draw you cards. Because if you get like items back that don't draw you cards, it might still be useful, like Vitalisphere. Maybe you can loop it and gain cards. But if you loop Vitalisphere, you need other ways to draw more cards. So 4 Popsicle is my main reason, because I just treat him as a draw engine and also as a lore gain machine, basically. Most of the time baits removal of the opponent too. So he does
for sure.
multiple things like gaining lore, baiting removal, and also yeah, drawing a bunch. And what you do mainly is the early ones. Why I went to 4 is that's a new concept that I just realized. I did it unconsciously, but I just realized that some cards in this deck are secret unnings, right? That means that you have cards that you don't want to ink in certain matchups, so your unink count is pretty much higher than the number says here. Of course, worst case you can ink them, but it will, yeah, lower your win rate a lot if you just get rid of, let's say, 2 manas in like a Ruby matchup.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
really bad. But still, when you need to ink, you need to ink it. But the same way, 2 Tamatoa were also kind of unink when you are going into a grand matchup where you actually need to keep getting your +1s, +2s. And if you play at least 3, or in this case 4, you can always ink the first one. And suddenly the card that was kind of a secret uninks becomes like a really easy inkable card now. Same with like Pirate's Life. That's why I play that 4. You can ink the first 2, and there's too many matches where you actually need to resolve 2.
Right.
So that's why I run 4, so I don't end up in the struggle where I have to decide, or like where I have to make the bad decision of inking one of my good cards. I can just ink it. Just gives me a bit more flexibility and freedom to do so. And the meta, I expected it to be more. Yeah, the first time I played only 2 was I didn't expect it to be that mid-range heavy. Maybe my deck, but even my deck wasn't that popular. But so many Ruby Amethyst, and now I decide to play 4 as basic and edge. There are other tech cards that you can run to beat mid-range, but most of them are unlinks, and I just decide to play more value. So I create just more value, pressure my opponent by just constantly pushing instead of, let's say, playing Hades and try to remove everything.
Right.
Because that's just the other way how to outvalue the mid-range. I would almost say mirror matches, because they play everybody plays Shark. Yeah, that's just another way, and especially in a deck where you also play Goof and Pirate's Life, you just have the reach that will bring you to 20 when you just keep pushing. And yeah, that's why I play 4.
Yeah.
I would recommend at least playing 3, but I like playing 4 as an edge instead of playing other tech cards.
Got it. And then I think the only other question I have is you were back on Brawl, which you weren't on in Germany. Why have you decided to come back on this card?
Yeah, so Brawl, it started with like that I overtech for this card because I was like, oh, it looks like that everybody is probably playing back playing Green Steel again, where if they have the nuts, meaning they have Shift Diablo and Ursula 3 cost into Prince John, it doesn't matter what you brought, you will lose. And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, the only way that I can survive that is getting the All is found through, somehow go to 8 and then just top deck board wipes back to back.
Right.
Um, but apparently, like Emerald Amethyst is more popular as a discard deck, especially in Europe, because it's also a bit better against the entire field, in my opinion, than Green Steel, and it's also less reliable on Diablos, and it's also more consistent Diablo, if we talk about that. So in the end, I decide for Brawl because mainly I kicked the oldest found, and the Brawl still have some usage, and mainly for aerial because if you're on the draw against a Steel Song, what you want to do is like they turn 3, they play out the aerial. If you have How Far Go and Brawl, you like to brawl the aerial, then they maybe play another aerial or Gaston, whatever. And then you can play out your How Far Go. Then you will be at 6 ink when they wheel you, and then you can ink 1 and play B prep.
Yep.
That's only to delay the whole new world. Else you can still use it occasionally. For example, when you go like Shark turn with 6 ink, next turn you have 7. You can go like Brawl plus How Far Go, Hardcast, or Brawl plus Tala, Brawl plus
Yep.
Mana, like such a tempo play to get rid of an invasive. So now what you can do is like you can sing with your Shark. Let's say you have How Far Go, Brawl, and Mana. Then you can go sing How Far Go, Brawl the Genie or any evasive. So they cannot use the crab to boost it by 3 and trade. And then you play out the mana. Now, if they attack the mana, you can trade back. It's just like a
Yeah, you can also
gap
have the
turn.
the brawl in the pool, which you can take it back with Shark. So it's always nice to have one or two of those there for
Yeah, it
that as
doesn't
well.
really happen that often, but it's
Yeah.
possible. It's
Yeah.
possible. It doesn't really happen often because at that time, when that late game stage, you can also Sisu quite often and then
Right.
just Sisu the entire board. So
Right.
yeah.
All right, let's get into some simulations of altering the hand now.
Sure.
Let's start on the play blind.
Wow. Um, so I've read some comments and some talks about keeping develop. Like um, if you draw a 1/1 drop, I think you should always ship everything. The only reason why you wouldn't ship the one drop is Popsicle, and if you know, maybe it's the matchup where you might need Popsicle, and in most matchups right now you need the Popsicle, so it's probably worth the risk and mulligan one less. But for develop, the reason why you ship it back is the chance is still so high that you draw into another one drop. And if you draw
Right.
into a Popsicle, that's almost the same. It's slightly better because Popsicle is better. You still see the same amount of extra cards. And if you draw into another develop overall, if you full ship, that's like insane, right? Because now you got an extra card and you still have the develop to dig through. But some people don't like the risk of not having any one drop all, which I can understand. But I think it's worth the risk. It's like 65% or so that you see another one drop or whatever. It's good enough for me to full ship and just if I miss the ramp, I still see a one drop most likely. So
Yep. All right. So let's
yeah,
alter that. I agree with you here. I played in the ICL this past week and I was full shipping. I think game 1 and 2.
yeah, that's nice. And now we got a really nice hand.
Oh yeah.
We have the ramp, we have the turn 3 play in Tala. We have the option of ramp. So like the first ink here, that's why what I love about having these kind of cards as a 4 off. Pirate's Life and Tamatoa are premium inks. You can ink both cards. Like my first ink here would be Pirate's Life, 100%. First, it's a song, so you dodge Ursula a bit, and also you have still 3 in deck, and you don't really use it until like really late game. So
Right.
That's totally fine. And then you still don't use either Tipo or Sail. You don't ink both, either of them, because you want to find out what you will need. If your opponent plays out like a Diablo one drop or like the purple one, or Chernadogs follower, you want to play out the Tipo to just force them to take out. But if you see it's more like a value matchup where the Sail ends up being better, let's say the mirror match, then Sail is better, right?
Right. Right.
So you want to keep the maximum amount of flexibility in your hands.
All right. Let's move on to on the draw blind.
Ooh,
This is
that is really interesting hand.
yeah.
Um, so now it depends on your risk assessment, um, and what you think, what's likely you will face, right? Like, if you go to a set champ that you know the meta there, um, let's say you know that there are many Ruby Amethyst and Ruby Sapphire, like or the more mid-range decks where you don't really need to put a body up immediately. Then you could go Popsicle, Popsicle, Sail, how far I go, like to keep these cards in hand. If you say I don't want to risk anything, you can also full keep if you want, because you have inkables, you have premium ink, which is Pirate's Life, you have your first ink, you have the second ink in Vision or Brawl, whatever. You can play a Popsicle, a Seal Popsicle if you actually know what matchup it is, but if it's blind, um, you can also keep like a Brawl. Depends on your build. Like if you play more turn 3 plays, let's say you play a few Goose on top of your Talas, you can try to mulligan for that, but right now in this build that we showed you had only one Goof for Talas, and keeping a Brawl is fine here because this card is running around, right?
Right.
Having at least a turn 3 play is also fine-ish, and it's worst case still ink. There's not much that you want to search if you are playing blind. So what you can do here is you can mulligan the Pirate's Life, the Vision, and now it depends on you if you want to keep the Alphago or not. For me, the meta right now is so open that I might face like a slower Ruby Amethyst deck that doesn't play Flint and so on. Or like a mirror match is also quite popular. So I kind of like to keep the Alphago, or maybe you play against Steel Song, then you have the decision of playing Brawl on Aerial or the Alphago. You can do exactly what I said before, so you can keep this. The only where the time it's really bad, it's like against aggressive decks, right? So
Right.
then it would punish you, but you still get one more extra draw. So even the unlinked nature is fine. There are just so many matchups where the Halfago turn 3 is really strong, especially if you draw into a second one and then you face like a Ursula that can only hit one. That's also really good because Halfago's the way how you beat this card mainly. Like how you ramp up and
Right.
just gain your +1. And yeah, you need to dodge the Ursula there, and then me seeing double Halfago makes me really happy against this card.
Oh
So I
yeah.
would ship like these two against like a really wide meta. Against depends on you. You can also ship the Brawl, the Alphago. If you wanna just keep the bare necessity, yeah, the Popsicle and Sail is enough because that gets you going. But I like to meta game a bit more, so I would keep the Brawl and Alphago.
Yeah, I'm leaning here with you as well. This is exactly what I would keep. Just Brawl is so much stronger on the draw, and so I agree there. And having these two pops set up and making our Tamatoas just perfect off the bat is going to be good. I really like this hand, so let's see what we get.
Yeah. So here we can see that even though we don't really have many bodies and so, we can dig a lot. Like we would use Popsicles, develop Sail. We can use that all in between turn 2, right? We get an extra draw for the first turn. We get Popsicle, develop, Seal. So you have a high chance to see actual bodies like Rush Mauis, Talas, Goose. So I think that's totally fine. And just hopefully you don't face like a super insanely fast like if your opponent starts with like I don't know Merfolk, you might use develop as the first card so you can actually find um the Tipo to
Yeah.
use it. And an interesting thing against like, in general discard and so on, you can discard your Popsicles now. You don't actually need to keep them or actually playing them out like with Hiram. Like the Tamatos will get them back. So
Right.
what I really like is if I face discard effects and I don't really need the Popsicles right now to heal up. Then I just discard them quite often.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's something that most people don't actually think about, so I'm glad you brought that up. All right, let's go into Ruby Amethyst on the play.
Wow. Ruby Amethyst on the play. This hand is technically you can full keep. uh, it's really, really good. Like what you want on here is one drop. You want the ramp, you want Halfago, you want Half Shark. So it now depends, of course, on the version. If they are, you have to be aware about one of B King because you can actually play around it if you play out like the Thala first and then sing Halfago, or you play out Tipo. That's why Tipo is still strong in this matchup, even though you go like -1.
Right.
Yeah, the body for this, but right now the evasive builds are really popular. So what you do is like you slam down Shark on 4, and then you start. They might go like Iago into Elsa, but that cost them so much.
Right.
It's really expensive. They lose 2 cards in 2 turns basically, and in the meanwhile you go like Tamatoas and Sharks afterwards. So what I would do here just to try to dig for like a Popsicle is Pyrus Life Mana and Tamatoa will go. And you just try to find the first Popsicle before you find Tamatoas.
All right, let's see. Oof.
Yeah.
We got the
Ooh,
Tipo,
that's
but
just I want to say, just pray that you don't draw into too many innings. But the problem is
yeah.
if you keep their hand and just draw naturally, you will draw these innings regardless, right? Like
Right.
if you just full keep, so that's fine because now probably we won't see the other innings. And the first ink here would be probably Tipo. Um, okay, one thing. The safest way if you don't know if they are on the B Kings and Tremaines and so on would be basically inking develop because your hand is really full of innings because in this case Shark is also an inning, so you basically have 4 innings in hand. And the logic behind here is if you're on the play you don't draw an extra card, so technically whatever you draw with develop you are also likely to ink if you
Right.
draw 1 more inning. So instead of risking it, you just ink the develop. That's like the one thing you can do. And also you keep yourself open to the option if you go Tipo or Sail. But to be honest, if I know it's a Ruby Amethyst and right now the trend shows that they don't play like a huge number of B Kings because the remain you can always dodge. Just play something after Shark. But B King has most time one off. So what I would do is like ink Tipo and use develop and try to map out my future turns and just go in from there and hopefully I draw like 2 more incubates
Yeah.
and just get the stuff rolling right now. Like maybe I get the Popsicle out of develop and then next turn I draw hopefully an Inkable, ink, play Seal, draw another Inkable, ink, play Popsicle, and just go from there.
Got it.
Because you still need to dig for Popsicle, unfortunately, even if you have so many innings.
All right, let's do Ruby Amethyst on the draw.
Bullshit.
Yeah, that's an
The
easy
same
one.
reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we like the we like to.
Oh, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. No, you forgot let it go.
Oh, I didn't click the let it go. Oh,
No.
whoops.
One
All right.
interesting thing is if you are facing a version or a matchup where the Rushmore is really good and you draw 2, the chance that you draw into the other 2s is quite low, right? You can keep 1, especially if you're on the draw. You can keep 1 Rush Maui. If I'm facing like a tempo deck, let's say green purple tempo, and I might think about keeping 1 Rush Maui because I know I will end up needing it, or like Digi Digi Hole. You will need the Rush Maui for sure. You need 2 Rush Mauis even against Purple Steel also. So maybe you can keep 1. And against like risk management, I did it a few times
Right.
where I kept the Rush Maui even though I have no ramp. Sometimes I got punished, sometimes I don't. Most of the time I didn't get punished, so that was totally fine. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Since most of the decks are pretty similar, what we're altering on the play, we're gonna go into Steel Song on the draw.
Yeah. So here's like an example of what I mean. We have a great curve of like talent to Rushmore, right? But we have no ramp, so if you feel like, let's say the Tala would be goofy. Yeah, let's say it's Goof instead of Tala. You can actually think about keeping both Maui and Goof and just try to high roll. Like go for 5
Yeah.
and relying on the extra draw too. Because on the other hand, of course, if you miss the ramp, it's rough. But if you hit the ramp, but you don't have anything to maybe stop their aggression, because sometimes Steel Song is not going slow, and Ariel and Sing Honeywell at some point they sometimes go like Daisy, Smee, Lawrence,
Yeah.
just to try to rush you down and sing later. Then you need something to counter. Like you can do this, but right now it doesn't look like that the decks are so aggressive. So I would full ship here probably. But I'm just saying that you can do something like this
Right.
if the Tala would be Goof, for example.
Yeah, I think it's great that we touched on the alternate lines we could take there. Ooh, all right.
Okay, we got the seal, at least a Tala. No Rushmoy, unfortunately, but against this deck, if they are not really rushing you, Rushmoy is not that important. It's more important that you ramp up. So we also got the Halfago, so that's great. And yeah,
Now,
this looks really good.
big question for you. Are you a play the how far on 3 or the Tala on 3 versus Steel Song on the draw? I always go back and forth, and then I play the Tala and I get hit by strength, or I play the how
Yeah,
far
exactly.
and then they wheel me, and so there's
But
yeah,
that's the point, right?
right,
If you see turn 3, they on the play turn 3 Ariel, you don't have Brawl, then you Halfago, because you play Otala, they either strength you with like a Cindy and then wheel you. You just give them another use case for the card that they would have discarded either way. You also didn't bring you further because you're still so far away from B prep. And that's what you want to do. Like, how to beat wheel was always to ramp, right?
right.
If you have like double Tipo, that's also awesome. Like, don't think that Tipo is automatically ink against a Steel Song deck. That's what I did against when was it? Uh,
At some point.
was in the last tournament in
Yeah.
Ravensburg. I had my opponent gave me 2 Tipos with Daisy, and on turn 3 I went Sail double Tipo. Mine was gone, but I was at 7 ink think at that time, and I was like, yeah. And then they wheeled me and I board wrapped them, so it was really really good.
Right.
So don't think that he is like automatic ink. He's really really strong in against the disc the Steel Song deck, because you don't want to use Halfago too often. You don't want to use your digging cards too often, because what happens a lot then is you either see too many of your board wipes and then they wheel you and you lose them, or you just go too much through your deck and they just deck you out at some point, right? You reach
Right.
0 cards in your deck and then you draw and you're dead. So yeah, that's something you have to keep in mind. The Tipo ramp is really, really useful, and then the bodies sometimes can just poke a Smee, like, or double Tipo can poke a Smee or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay, let's go into Emerald Steel discard on the draw.
hmm Yeah, this hand is solid again. It's almost like against everything where you go Sail, Tala is always good against
Yeah.
everything, so you keep these two for sure. And this hand, unfortunately, we have nothing else. If you had Brawl, you would also keep Brawl.
Right.
But yeah, that's it. And Tala is still fine. Tala keeps your hand healthy while providing you a body for the Halfago, which we got. So in this hand here, now we got an alternative route. You never go for Tipo. Like, if you have the decision between Tipo and Sail against an extra Diablo, you always go Sail. Give them the card, because the extra card they get is less valuable than than your own hand size. Because if you go Tipo, the body does nothing against the Diablo deck, so
Right.
you're only losing a card to stop them from drawing, which is really bad. So always go for Sail
It
to
also
have
gives
one more
them
card in
a
hand.
it also gives them a storm target too for them to unclog their hand if their
Yeah,
hands
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So unnecessary gives them a storm target too. So always go for Sail. So in this case, you have 2 choices. If they don't also allow you, I would always go how far I go into Shark, so
Yep.
the Diablo stops questing, and also to have a small checkpoint where they stop questing, because how they can also beat you is just quest with everything, right?
Right.
With the Ursula Diablo, just keep questing, and after 10 turns they win. But if they creep slowly there, they will win at some point. So yeah, Seal, Hofar go Shark Maui. If they Ursula, you need to go through Tala, but that's totally fine.
All right, let's go into the final look of the day on Chernadogs on the Draw, one of the newer popularized decks, and probably the most aggressive deck in the format right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have two ways to do it here. This is really interesting. So definitely Tipo. Tipo is like one of the best, right? Tipo Tala is fine because at least these two can beat Rush Maui. So what you want to have on top of this is you want to have the Rush Maui too. So Tipo Daisy can take out, Tipo Tala can take out Daisy. Rush Maui can take out another Daisy or whatever is quite big. And interesting thing here is if you know it's Chernodog, you technically don't need the Popsicle because it's way too fast for you to loop it with Tamatoa. You also don't really want to heal something because if something of you is damaged, they would never ever value trade in running something into it because what's the point? They could
Right.
just quest. So you don't need Popsicle, but what you need is maybe a Goof, maybe a Brawl, maybe a Rush Mummy. And to give yourself more option, I would keep the Develop as your turn 1 play instead of the Popsicle here because it's not needed in this matchup.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's send this away.
Yeah. So now we have like double Tipo. So the first thing is either ink one vision because you will not use it. You can also ink the Pyrus Life even though you need it because they play Ursula, right? So
Yeah.
they can go turn 1 aggressive. Of course, turn 2 Ursula is not as fast. So you're also kind of happy if they go turn 2 Ursula, which they might not do anymore if you ink the Pyrus Life. Maybe they're like, oh, they got rid of the only song, maybe. Technically, you can eat the Ursula, and then not try it, but it can also backfire if they start with Merfolk, because they are on the play, right? I might probably ink this because I don't want to lose too many cards in my hand. So
Right.
yeah, the Merfolk, hitting the Merfolk, and also playing out the Tipo here, that can be really rough in your hand because you might end up not having enough stuff to ink up to 8 for your Sisus because Sisu is really insane against this deck. So you
Oh
want to
yeah.
get to Sisu. And you still have more Pyrus Life in deck, so I don't think you need to keep it that long. You will get Ursula probably way before that. Yeah, so you can ink the Pyrus Life, or you can ink like Tipo and then ink the Pyrus Life. I know they are on the play, so you need to ink the Pyrus Life first and play Develop, basically. I mean, if you get another song, then it doesn't matter. Then you probably ink the Tipo or the Vision,
Got it.
because you cannot ink both before the Ursula.
All right. Well, DKP, it's been a great journey today, and I want to thank you for joining me. Is there anything you want to shout out or just mention before we close out today?
Yeah, sure. Shout out to my team, World Class Cards. Always a pleasure to work with them. Also, shout out to if you guys want to learn more about this deck, to my masterclass on my Metafy. Also, if you visit my Metafy, there's something new. I started a tier program where I dedicate my time to a specific group of people who decide to join my Discord. So yeah, it will be really fun. I will be there all the time and help you guys out. You can ask me everything, and yeah, that's something I started recently, and will also post publicly, but next week.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. I've really wanted to get you on here and go through this deck because I think the story of this deck is one of the most incredible stories in Lorcana, in my opinion, where you just kept pushing it the last set and nobody kind of agreed with you at the beginning, and you just kept pushing it, pushing it, and just kind of showed up to Australia and did not lose. I think what's your total game losses in Australia, the continent there, like 3 maybe. You just kind of just wrecked it.
Yeah, I drew 3 times and I lost. Ah, you mean games that I actually lost like
Yeah.
5, I think.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, well, still just an insane win record on that continent.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
yeah, so your innovation skills on this has been incredible, and you've brought a ton to the community. So appreciate what you do, and thank you for your time today. And we will see everybody next week for another great episode of Alter Academy. Thank you.
Yeah, see you guys.